What is going on, my fellow champions of the realm? It's your boy Apache, and today we're going to be starting a new series called Paladins Maps Explained. And for those of you who don't know, my great friend CHECKMATE is going to be helping me out with this series as well. And we're basically just going to try our best to bring you some knowledge, right? So in this series, right, we will be talking about map characteristics, callouts. We're going to try to show you which lanes are considered main lanes, off lanes, where on the map are the choke points located, good rollouts for those maps, right? Good positioning. We're going to also try to show you where you should be soft or hard zoning, as well as setting up for attacks and defenses. We would try to explain what champions and comps are strong or weak on the map, as well as we'll try to show you some mount jump spots, some cool tips and tricks, and maybe some special spots, man. So yeah, without further ado, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and you learn a lot. And yeah, let's get into it. Let's go.
All right. So what are callouts?
So callouts basically is just relaying information. It could be map positions, it could be enemy positions, right? It could be talking about cooldowns, ultimates, you know, a lot of things. But in general, callouts are just relaying information to your teammates.
So what is the difference between mirrored maps and rotated maps?
So mirrored maps, they're going to be identical, right? It's just basically like you slice it in half. If you fold it, it'll be exactly the same on the opposite side, right? So basically whatever you see on your left side, it'll be on their right side, right? And so on and so on. Asymmetrical, it'll be a little different. I'm not really sure exactly how to explain it, but basically whatever's on your left will be on their left, and whatever's on their right will be on your right. So when they roll out, basically they'll have the same kind of, I guess, strengths that you will, in a sense. But basically your rollout will be identical.
So we have a total of 14 maps, 10 which are mirrored, and 4 are symmetrical or rotated maps. The rotated maps are Bazaar, Shatter Desert, Timbermill, and Warder's Gate. What is zoning?
Alrighty, so zoning, basically it's a phase of the game, right? So it's a couple phases, but I would say it's like the middle phase of the mid-point fights, right? Basically, your goal in a zone is to gain map control and deny the enemy from getting a clean recontest. So, in our reality, you want to knock them off their horses, right? You want to force them to use cooldowns and waste time, because at the end of the day, time is going to be on your side if you're capturing. So you want to basically give yourself you want to take away as much time as possible from them, so that you can get more cap. In general, so let's say that I'm coming off the objective here, right? We just want to fight, and I'm looking to zone, right? So a soft zone in our reality is going to be when you get 1 kill, 2 kills maybe, but the enemy team still has, you know, decent map control, right? Or you're basically positive that they're going to get a recontest, right? So you don't want to play too aggressive because you don't want to get caught out or get split. So in a soft zone, a good example would be me playing this little fountain right here. Reasoning is because I have sight lines through circle to their mid. I can see tree, and then I can see temple to my right. So I have good lines of sight onto everything for the most part. Playing here, I'd be looking to dismount temple and probably tree, and then I'd have somebody who would be more so watching circle and tunnel, and then somebody else would be watching basically blue. And the goal of a soft zone is just to like not force too much map control, whether it's the enemy team has a lot or they're maintaining it, as well as it's just your comp's not fast enough to get farther up in time, right? The difference, and then when we talk about a hard zone basically is just you're going to go deeper, right? So instead of me being right here playing, I guess you could say passive, right, safe, I'd probably push up to temple here, and then from temple I have a view on mid, as well as I can see right side, right? And I'm controlling a power position, right? So now I'm controlling a power position in temple, and I can see, you know, far right, I can shoot mid if I have to, and then let's say we cap, right now we have superior map control because we were able to zone so hard. Typically when you're hard zoning, there's a term that my buddy Dink taught me. It's called digging. And basically, when you hard zone, 9 times out of 10, you don't want to give space, right? If you hard zone, you should be you basically should be, if anything, dying forward, because your death will cause them to not recontest, if that makes any sense. So soft zone, you kind of, there's a high chance they will recontest and you're not able to take map control. Hard zones, you're kind of ensuring that they're not going to recontest because you're going to do whatever it takes to like not let them recontest.
When is it considered to be overextending when zoning?
So when zoning, overextending, I don't know. It's a very fine line, right? Because when you're soft zoning, and if I just go back here, an overextension of soft zoning could be from right here. I'm okay because I have the fountain for cover. I have here for cover. You know, I can rotate over to point. I'm fine. But quite literally, if I just go from here to here, now I have nothing, and this could be considered an overextension because even though I'm 10 feet from where I should be, you know, if I don't have cooldowns, like there's no way that I get into cover, without dying. Same thing with even in a hard zone. Even though sometimes your goal is to die and stuff, if right here's a strong position, but I'm like, I'm all the way in their spawn, and we've only had 20% cap, right? And they kill me. Now that's an overextension, and they just get a free retake, right? So for the most part, it's just sometimes people would take a little bit too much space when they don't really have to, and it literally could be 10 feet, and that could be an overextension. So in my opinion, I feel like there's a few things that can kind of dictate what kind of zone it is, right? It's not very like I guess what the word, I don't know what the word would be, but it's not like cut and dry. It can't just be like, okay, well, you have this much cap, you can hard zone, right? Because if I have 80% cap, but I'm a support and my whole team's dead, I can't zone, right? So there's other factors, right? There's how much cap you have. That's how many enemies you've eliminated, how many of your teammates have been eliminated, right? Which is going to dictate how efficient that zone will be, how deep you can go, and things like that, right? The point you're making, where the cap time will affect it, is, let's say that the fight was even, they lost one, we lost one, right? But we have 60% on cap, right? So ideally, there's a chance they can get a retouch, right? But if you zone correctly, it'll be really hard, right? So at that point, if you're able to pull off a hard zone, it'll be super efficient because now you've put yourself in a position to waste the most amount of time. Compared to, let's say, we get a team wipe, but we only have 2 up. We can't necessarily hard zone because we still have teammates that are coming back, and we just can't control all the lanes that we need to control. So let's say they just so we're hard zoning and they just hard push our hard zone. They can kill the one person zoning because the other person's on cap, right? So that's a thing as well.
One thing I realized now that like zoning type could differ from map to map. Like big maps
Yes.
could be treated very differently.
So that's a great point, right? And I think a great example of that is going to be Ascension. Because from Ascension, you really don't always have to hard zone because you have like good LOS on most of the stuff. As well as Splitstone. I feel like Splitstone is one of the hardest maps to zone because literally in front of the point is the choke, right? And it's one of the hardest chokes to break because you're so low on the ground and they're so high up, right? And to get to that high ground, you have to fully wrap around, whether it's underneath or through that or through that little main lane, right? The little like main to side lane to get all the way to their high ground unless you have vertical mobility, right? So on a map like Splitstone, quite literally, sometimes you will get a full team wipe and you will not hard zone because you just don't have the speed, you don't have the comp to get to high and put yourself in a meaningful position to where you can zone properly. Because by the time you wrap all the way around, their respawn timer is basically done and they're already pushing into you and things like that, right? So that is a great thing to point out, actually.
Do you always have to contest point to win a point fight?
Alrighty, so in my opinion, for many people who know me, right, I am a big fan of playing dive tanks, right? You'll see me playing main tank Rum, Yago, sometimes Ash, right? I love to play Ruckus, right? I like things that go zoom, right? I like to be fast, I like to be aggressive. And what that entails is usually if I'm playing against something like a Barrack, an Inara, a Term, at the end of the day, they're just going to outcap me, right? What that means is I have to find value in another way. So in a sense, right? Do I have to be on cap the whole time to win the point fight? No. Because as a tank, if I get all the way into their backline and I kill 2, even if they get 30% cap, their tanks are going to die anyways because their DPS and their support are in spawn, right? So, do you have to contest the point all the time to win the mid fight? Absolutely not. But does it help? Yes, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to give up too much free cap. So, if the thing that you're going to be doing is going to take way too long, somebody should be sitting on it, or you should probably start on the cap to maybe do some damage to the enemy main tank to force them off, but then maybe rotate off, right? So, do you have to contest all the time? No. Do you have to start on cap? No. It's going to depend on your comp, right, and what your goal is at the end of the day. Okay, so overtime, right? Overtime is the phase in the point fight where the enemy team has almost capped the objective, right? And basically, when they get to a certain percentage, if the enemy team that has obviously is not there yet, if they touch the objective, it'll kind of give them a little bit of time to kind of contest, right? So, in a sense, a good example would be I feel like the best time to touch will probably be 87%. I think you can trigger overtime at 84, but I usually just stick with the 87. So around 87%, I'll quickly touch and get off. And what that will do is, even though I got on and got off real quick and they're still capping, as long as they haven't reset the timer, me touching at 87 will proc a timer, so even when they hit 100%, it will cause it'll cause an overtime. And with that overtime, it just gives me a little bit of bonus time, my team bonus time, so that they are able to, like, I don't know, get a little closer, or get into the positions they need to be instead of just all rushing and diving on point, right? You don't want to just throw all your bodies on point. You want to get map control and things like that, right? The overtime touch, it can be pretty scary because obviously you don't want to lose for not having somebody on, but especially in the beginning, which we can probably show you in a second, you have plenty of time. You're on, I'm on, right? And now if you get off, right, even though it'll hit 100%, it'll proc an overtime. So it hits 100, right? It'll proc an overtime, and as long as he'll touch before it ends, right, and then you can get off, it'll proc another timer. And I believe every time you touch, it will just reduce it by a second, right? Let's see.
It doesn't decrease by a second, but it reaches to the point where you have the minimum overtime will be a second.
Got you. Okay. So you can actually get, as you guys saw there, you can actually get a good amount of touches, right? So as an Andro, you could just like dash in, dash out, right? And then now you're out, and then basically since I have so much mobility, being able to just get in, get out, get a quick touch, get on and off, and then allow my tank to get a little bit more time, right? And it's really, there's going to be a lot of efficient touchers like Eevee and things like that where you can kind of do it repetitively. But just being able to just like walk on, dash off, wait till your thing's about to end, right? Dash on again and dash off again, just to give your tank that much more time. How long exactly is the respawn? I mean, the overtime timer.
Yes, the first overtime is 6 seconds long, and every time you step off, like step off and step back on, then you'll be re-triggering the overtime.
Yeah.
The duration will be decreased every time you touch. The minimum overtime will be 1 second long.
Got you. So in a sense, if I just repeatedly get on and off, I'll speed up the timer.
Exactly.
Oh, that's actually good information, because then you can kind of force like a fast OT, if that makes any sense, right? Yeah. And I want to say a quick little thing, because I don't really know a lot of main tanks who do it, but definitely the person that I kind of like learned that little strategy from, and I felt like was actually, I don't know if he perfected it, but got really good at it, was Mage Monkey. He was really good at just like understanding like when the enemy team was just going to get a touch no matter what, and he would just play off the point, and then the second you would step off for more than 3 seconds, he'd just tap it, and then it would just be a free cap. So when contesting the objective, right, everybody kind of dictates off the basically contesting based off of like, oh well, I'm in the circle, right? But at the end of the day, the way it really works is that the center of the card has a line that draws out within that circle, and you have to be within the LOS of that circle. So if like right now I'm at a position to where I can, if I just back up and it's far enough, but if I come over here, I'm at the rock, and even though I'll be in the circle, right? So right now I'm in the circle, you just can't see it, but in the cart, so like right here, contest compared to here, even though I'm in the circle, since the LOS is being blocked by the rock, I can't contest the objective. And that's a big thing on maps like Warders, where there's 2 trees that surround the objective, and even though you're still within the circle, you can't contest because the trees block your LOS. Alrighty, so for overtime for the card, it's very different compared to point overtime, right? So as you guys saw, I was able to, well, Checkmate was able to basically proc overtime by touching the objective at 90%, right? So he's able to touch it while I'm on and get off, and even though the percentage goes up, right? And so the percentage goes up and it gets to 100, it won't cap because he proc the overtime, right? But when it comes to the card, you can't do that, right? So you can't touch the card at 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, and get off and contest. You have to touch it and maintain that contestion, I guess you could say, or contest while the timer runs out, right? And that will proc the overtime. So the difference between the point, you can touch it early and get off, and you'll be fine. The cart, you need to remain in. You basically need to remain contesting until the timer runs out, and then the overtime will proc.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
No! Ah, no! Come on!
So basically, if you're only down by 1, you're going to be getting, so it'll be 3%, 4%, 3%, 4%, ideally, right? Because I know it's 3.9, but round it up, right? So if
Rounded, yes.
Yeah, so if you're down by 1, you're going the ticks are going to be 3%, 4%, 3%, 4%. If you're down by 2, which we currently are, it should be 4% every tick. I think another thing to keep in mind too is like, and I know we've already talked about point contesting and stuff like that, right? But comeback mechanic really does play a big role in point contesting, right? So it's like normally, ideally I would contest the point at least 87%, right? But as the ticks change, right, the numbers change, right? So if it's 3-4, 3-4, right, I might have to touch, I might have to touch like a little bit earlier, right, or a little bit later. And then if it's just straight 4 ticks, I have to, definitely play around that touch more conservatively because of the fact that, normally when I would look for a touch, it might be too late. So guys, for some odd reason, the outro disappeared for this video, but that's going to conclude the episode 0 of this series. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Be ready for episode 1. Let's go.